There are some points I love to share with you and also discuss with you about dancing regarding to friends who they have special information they collected through their time of dancing, and they believe 100% these information are correct more than any new information they can see or hear or watch now. The first point is we have to understand the meaning of dancing and why we losing this type of dance now. I'm talking about the folk dance and of course the Oriental and belly dancing. Also here in Egypt and all over the world. Dancing, it belongs to our inner and outer feelings, and when we're going to dance, we dance because we want to say something we feel or something we did or something we will do in the future, something like that. But of course in dance there is no future as the meaning of the word. I'm not dancing because of the future, I'm dancing because something had happened in or had happened to me and I'm still live in, or something I believe that it will happen in the future or something like that. Dancing, it looks like writing, exactly like the language. Human used dance or used performance or used movements before dancing. This is the most important point we have to understand. And when we discovered the language, when we discovered the talking, we start to use talking much more than our movements, but still the movements can help our language to explain what are we doing or what we want to say. So this is very important point to have to understand why we move or why we move our hands, for example, or our bodies or sometimes part of our faces through our talking. In the beginning was much more movements than talking, because talking was not complicated as now we can explain everything by talking. So now I can stand up in front of you or I sit in front of you like that and I start to talk, and of course you will understand me. But if I am talking with another language, you will not understand me. But through my body movements you will understand much more through my talking or what I am talking about. These hands, for example, or the complete body help me a lot to explain much more through my talking. Dancing became after that or started to move to the feeling what I wanted to explain for the others. This is the main point of dance, but through the history, dancing became something looks like fingerprinted or footprint to the societies or to the categories, some categories or part of categories or categories inside the societies. So we can understand the difference between categories in the society through their movements and of course through their dance, which affected with this type of movements what they do through their lifestyle. So we have to study dancing right well, and we have to understand all these types of dances. I'm not talking about a country itself or something like that, but all type of dances through the world, which a lot of scientists or specialists, they did already, but in the Arab countries, we start to lose a lot of our folk dances because of a lot of reasons. This is exactly the first point I love to share with you and I love to discuss with you about it. Yes, also. As you know, a lot of forms of dance we lost through the history. Maybe you hear this from me or from someone else or from many of teachers. They explained to you something about the past, about the type of dances, and these type of dances we lost it through the history, or these type of dances we never use it anymore, and much more like that. So how we can keep all these type of dances and never lose it once more again, this is another point I will discuss with you, yes, also. The point number two is we have to understand each type of dance and we have to study it right well. Why? Because we are using the steps which belongs to this type of dance or the other type of dance inside our main point, which it is the Oriental dancing or belly dancing. So we have to understand every type of dance right well. One day I will choose a step belongs to this type or to this form of dance, and then I will change or I will jump from this step to the second step which belongs another type of dance. How can I collect them all together without understanding every type of dance around me, or every type of dance can help me actually through my dance career in this part actually. So for this reason I have to study right well, correct most of the dances, most of the dance forms to help me in the end how can I use them or part of them or one step or two steps of them through my dancing or my performance on the stage. Also, I have to study the main points around these types of dance forms, which can help me a lot to understand deeply what is behind the step or the meaning behind the step, which can help me a lot to do the step in a correct way. The third point is don't deny the new dance forms which you see now, because these type of dances coming from these people or from these dancers who believe something like that, or they do it by their feelings. So you have to understand why they're doing something like this, or you can ask them very easy what is the meaning behind their dance. Then you can understand why they're doing something like that. The old dancers or the group dancers since long time or through the history, they never do something like this and suddenly people say that yes it is. No, they discussed together, but either by their culture or through their culture, or sometimes they asking them why are you doing something like that, and the other he explained or she explained why she is doing. Sometimes through the history something like that had happened. So for this reason I never deny any type of new dance form, but I have to ask the colleague or the friend or the dancer in front of me why she doing something like that, to let me understand why she is acting like this way. I feel sad sometimes when I see some choreographers or teachers, they said that this type of dance is very bad, or I don't know this, so it is completely wrong, or something like this. This is, I say, it is something she mess. I mean, the teacher or the choreographer mess in somewhere in his mind or her mind, something like this. So for this reason, they deny what in front of them. So never deny any new form of dances. Before you ask the dancer or the performer in front of you why she or he did something like that and the meaning behind. Number 4, the correct history method of dance. A lot of dancers, or let me say many dancers, they believe 100% that the history did something like that, so I have to do the same. Or in the history, some people did something like this in dance, so I have to do the same as them if I wanted to do the correct dancing. It is very strange. Why? 99% of the history or the dancing in history, especially our type of dance, what we love, no one saw before. It is just some sentences, a little sentences in the sources or the references we read or we found, and we started to explain about them. But really, if you start to think seriously about all these types of dances, suddenly you will find something it will be amazing for you, or you will astonished when you know about them. Not everyone wrote about dance through the history. The past was right or were correct. This is very important point you have to keep in mind. Why? Not every one of them was a dancer. Not all the writers were dancers, so they wrote what they feel or what they felt already. This is very critical point or very important point I have to keep in mind, because if I am a dancer, I will looking from the window of dance, then I will explain much more about this type of dance. But if I am not, then I will speak or I will write about my feeling, which sometimes it is against this type of dance or against this way of movements or much more points like that. For example, I found many mistakes the French scholars wrote about dancing in Egypt when they entered Egypt long ago. And a lot of writers later, they took it as it is, transmitted as it is, and they wrote about it without explain why or without to know if it is right or wrong. Correct or wrong. This is exactly what had happened, such as Gawazi in the end of 18th century. The scholars wrote something very strange about the Gawazi in this time. Look, in the streets here in Egypt long ago, the Gawazi were dancing in many places. People, I mean the Egyptians, they loved it very much, or they loved to saw them, to watch them very much. In the end, they give them money, which it means exactly that they like this type of dance, this type of act. In the other side, scholars watched them at the same time, but they found that it is type of erotic dance. Both were not the same. I mean, both minds were not the same. The French scholars, they found it is something not good, and this is a type of dance belongs to erotic dancing, and they don't like it or dislike it. At the same time, the Egyptians, they like it. What does it mean exactly? That means exactly we have to study the society in the beginning to understand in the end why they acting like this way. By the way, in this time long ago, we are not dancing, but it is type of mimic. It is type of pantomime or mime. So it was completely different than type of dance in this time. People in Egypt, the Egyptians, they loved it very much. So they like to watch it again and again, or they will not give them money in the end. We have to think about it. Later, a lot of Egyptian writers, they took it as it is, like that, and they said that we're not good, were bad type of dance, these type of Gawazi, they were wrong, and blah, 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 which took us in the end to the wrong place or a wrong path. We went with them to the wrong path. So this is exactly one point I love to share with you. I wrote about it in one of my researches, and I explained exactly the mistake. We still move on until now. Another point, we have to understand actually how these people were dancing. The problem is we cannot find actually a special book talking about them. But the writers, they wrote a lot of explanation about their type of dance. But the main point is the writers, they wrote, as I told you, by their minds, such as, I give you some examples, the bee dance. So we have to be careful when we go collect our information through the sources or through the history by these sources or these references. And we have to understand actually the time, the people, the society in this period, to understand why they doing some or why they did something like this. In Egypt, we have many different types of folk dancing. A lot of them, or most of them, disappeared, or we lost them through the history because no one wrote about them, or they wrote just sentence or two sentences talking about it and then finished. So it gives us sometimes the imagination to imagine how they were dancing. Some of us create a type of dance steps which from his or her imagination, and later a lot of people believed that it is like that. This way it comes because of the images in our minds which facing or became equal to the same type of dance step in the front of me. If it is like that, that means she is correct or he is correct, the performer, he or she is correct. But if it is not, then it will be something completely different. Maybe I say that they are wrong, or I say that they lost the way they doing their performance. So I have to be careful when I collect the information which I will use later through my students or through my dance career. I have to understand actually, and I have to take the information not only from one source, but from many different sources to let me in the end believe that it is the correct or not. Sometimes some of you collecting their information from a special category in the society. It is correct, it is okay, no problem. But the main point is I have to study this category through the history. Most of the categories or dance categories in the society, they marginalized through in the history, in the past. And they were trying to prove their existence by many ways. Sometimes these ways are wrong or were wrong or correct. The problem is they trying to prove their existence like that, which can take us away of the correct information we are collecting. So we have to be careful, and we have to study the category through the history to understand exactly if they were correct or not of this information they gave us. The last point is, do we have a correct form of dances? This question, very difficult. All of you believe that when I'm going to dance, for example, stick dance, I have to do it like this way. Or if I am doing farmer dance, this way. Gawazi dance, that way. Hajjala dance, that way. All these type of dance steps belongs to us. I mean belongs to us as the teachers. Of course, we created all these types of dance steps onto the real folk dances. But what about the real folk dances? Do you believe that all of these dancers through the history, they were dancing the same exactly as we are doing now? Or the folk dancers, the real folk dancers doing now? Of course not. Why? Because through the history and also all references, all books talking about many different types of categories in the society, especially also, or let me say also in dances. A lot of groups, they were doing a competition between each other, which one of them is the best in front of the audience. If the audience said that this group is correct than the other group, or these dancers are correct than these other dancers, in this point, these dancers, they were correct. But step by step through the history, some of them changing once more again, one part, two parts, or sometimes a complete dance to be something new. This is the way, by the way. The dancing since long time not same as now. Through the history, change it, and the steps became either stronger or maybe slower, or sometimes became bigger than before, and so on and so on. Sometimes we use something new, or something new had happened, so the dancers, the folk dancers, they used and you step instead or beside or near or close to the steps they studied before, and so on and so on. This is a life, and this is the graduation, as we say, for the dancers, or the process of dancing or step dancing through the history. So we cannot say that this is the ideal or this is the perfect type of dance they or we or you or someone else has to do the same, then she will be a correct or something like that. In every category of dance or in every form of dance or a group of dancers. On the stage, something completely different. Why? Because, as I told you, and I'm always telling you, there is a big difference between folk dancing and theatrical folk dancing, which is exactly in folk dancing, we choose the correct step which belongs to this category in the society, and we polish it, we clean it, then we use it by this way, and sometimes we change a little inside, or sometimes what around the surface of the dance step to be perfect for what are we doing on the stage. So this is completely different way. Also, through the history of dancing, I mean the stage dancing or theatrical dancing, the steps changed, yes, also, except some types or some forms of dance which is still the same, such as the classical ballet dance, which maybe one day I will talk with you about it, or about all these types of dances. I will explain much more about them. It is not an our issue or an our point now, but this is exactly the way of our thinking, or the way to think about if it is correct type of dances or not. So for this reason, if you see someone changed something inside his or her performance, very easy to ask him why or what is the meaning behind, then he or she will explain to you why she used this type of dance or not, or of dance, or if it is correct or not. You will understand immediately. This is the main point. But when dancing became as a competition, it will be completely different. It will take us to the sport category, which is completely different than dancing. In sport, either winner or loser, but in dance, feeling. What is my feeling? What is the feeling? What is the inner or outer feeling? I will spread it in front of the audience or to the audience. So this is completely different. What is the idea I use in my performance or in my choreography, which people will understand it, or the audience will understand it or not. Also, maybe sometimes audience cannot understand what I am doing. So this is something missing now through my dancing. This is exactly the way. So for this reason, there are no perfect type of dance. I say now it is, but the feeling, the imagination, what I explain through my performance, which can equal or meet the image or the images inside the audience's minds. In this point exactly, they will say perfect, or they will say wow, professional, or loser, what she is doing, what he is doing, something like that. So keep in mind this point, then go create your choreography. This was my video for today, which I hope you like it. If you find it useful for you and you find a lot of information on it, please share it with your friends, and I will be waiting for your comments, which they are very important for me. Thank you very much, and see you again in the next video.